Hey folks, how you all doing? Oh my goodness, Rhoda, close that off and switch to the correct camera. Oh my word, what is going on? Just now, I am actually having technical difficulties. Give me 2 seconds, folks. Anyhow, while the camera coming up, the song we started off with would have been Melik and Boogie Ranks, right? So good evening, folks. Good evening, folks. Good evening, folks. How are you doing? So I did not plan to really do a live this evening because there's an event that I'm looking to head out to. But then I said to myself, you know what? There are things that we need to talk about. There are a lot of things, backlog of things taking place all the time. But because I'm getting ready and getting back into a groove in terms of work schedule, not just with the live, but also my work now, the things that is actually pay the bills, my University of the West Indies job. I said, all right, good. Time for me to kind of get back in a gear because I'm about to resume this semester and let me start to do things. Now, there are a couple things that I want to tackle with respect to culture, and I thought I would start with phase 2 Baamboo Groove this evening, right? And that's because this whole business of beaten books versus beaten pan is a mantra that people just like to carry on with when they decide they want to start to attack black culture in a particular way. It's clear dog whistle language, but let me start off the thing nicely. Let me say hello to everybody. Let me, let all you know I have manners and brought up seeing thing. So hi folks, all of you that are here that have joined me, that on the stream right now. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here. Hi, Daryl Akong. Nice to see you. Hi, Camille. Hi, Jody. Hi, Debbie. From the pictures, you've missed something major on Facebook. Debbie, I don't know if you've missed anything major per se. And let me tell you why I'll say me and think you missed anything major. It's the same foolishness that the usual suspects carry on with all the time, which is to attack carnival culture, to attack anything that is associated with people of African descent here, and of course to make it into a whole bacchanal. And there's a reason that one of the usual suspects, one of the scavengers, Inshan Ishmael, would have done it. But before we get into Inshan, let me talk about some of the good news that we have to look forward to, or some of the good news that happen. First thing, Israel is clear that he can't be the president. And I feel it is a good thing. It does some good news that Israel realizes that he can be the president of Trinidad and Tobago. So I saw this story this morning and I smiled to myself. I heaved a huge sigh of relief and I said to myself, I'm glad that good sense has prevailed where he is concerned and he knows this. Because you all know on the 20th of January, the Electoral College of our Parliament is meeting to vote on the next president. While I'm sure we've spoken here about my reservations about the PNM nominations, I am very clear that Israel Khan does not in any way fit the criteria to sit in the office of the president. So I don't know what the opposition was carrying on with when they made that particular suggestion. So correct Debbie Marquise, president, nothing, not when is Israel Khan. So that was one piece of good news that I saw this morning. Eric is asking what's going on with Facebook. Eric, I have said here on a number of occasions that Facebook does give me stress. If I, this week is a good example. I put up pictures of some dogs, right? A friend of mine apparently has a litter of German Shepherd puppies that he is looking to get into homes. So he puts up the pictures of the puppies and he tags me. He asks me if I'm interested. I said, no, I'm not interested, but other people might be interested. So I share the post with the puppies, and I share the post with the puppies basically saying, steady my hand, I'm not looking to get any new puppies, but let somebody else get these puppies instead. Facebook banned me for 6 days because Facebook is saying that I am attempting to sell animals and sell animal parts, right? And as a result of that, I can't post to Facebook from my, through my Rhoda Barrett account. So it means that other people have to be posting to the Newsauce page for me. And there are too many restrictions, and there are too many weird rules on Facebook, and there are too many things that Facebook does allow. So all kind of hate speech does be on Facebook. People will say all kinds of nasty things about women. People will say all kind of nasty things about black people, all kinds of racist things, all kinds of homophobic things get posted to social media. All kinds of divisive things get posted on social media on a regular basis, and I see those people posting like normal. Whereas me, I put up some pictures of some dogs, and next thing you know, boom, I banned for 6 days because I am allegedly attempting to sell animal parts. And I was like, I'm going through all of that foolishness. So I am on YouTube, and people who want to see me can come and see me on YouTube, which now makes me have to do a plug. Newsauce is the name of the channel. Like the channel and hit the notification button, so that way you will get notifications. You will know when I'm going to be doing a live program, or when I have uploaded a video, because I am going to get into producing small video clips, shorter type things, and also doing independent interviews that I may not necessarily air as a live, but will update and upload, that's what I meant to say, upload onto YouTube. So just to say, the YouTube channel is the most stable platform for me. It is the platform that I prefer to be on. It is the platform that I prefer to work with. Richard, I hear you about appeal the ban, but here's what. When the day come, I have 1,000,001 things I'll be doing. Plenty things. And in the middle of all of that, I am balancing my personal life, my normal, regular life. Me and looking to fight up with Zuckerberg and their rules, and I just ain't looking to beat up with our foolishness. If Facebook wants to be ridiculously restrictive in the way in which it is ridiculously restrictive, that's fine. YouTube has not yet given me those kinds of constraints, so I good to go. Richard, thank you for the advice, but no, I'm not going to be appealing. I'm not remotely interested in putting myself through those gymnastics, but thanks for the advice. I see Ingrid Jara is here, so big up Ingrid, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Yes, Wendy, even if you mention something as basic as death, you get put in FB jail. I was put in Facebook jail for an entire month for recommending a show on Netflix. Now Netflix has a Facebook account. Netflix was actively promoting the show. It's the Jeffrey Dahmer series, the series about the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. I put up a post saying people who are interested in true crime murder stories would be interested in this Jeffrey Dahmer series on Netflix. Facebook banned me for a whole month. And it was at the time of that 1 month ban, I decided, you know what? I don't have the time for this foolishness. Let me move entirely over to YouTube and build my content there, build my following there, build my brand there. And so here we are, right? So like the channel, subscribe for notifications, and that way you will know what is a doing when I'm doing what is a doing. Good. So the first piece of good news was that Israel can't have no chance of becoming president. What's the next piece of good news? Well, we're in carnival season. It's have all kind of carnival things going on. As a matter of fact, one of the pieces of good news is after I've done the live tonight, I heading off to an event. What is another piece of good news? For me, as a hetero female, carnival have plenty nice man who does just be, listening to pan, whining down the place, and maybe I could, if they stand up and they're whining long enough, I could take a little tips on the bumper. So, Olia, Stuart Young wild. Stuart Young on the loose. Stuart Young out and bad these days. I don't know. Maybe Stuart's single again. What I do know is Stuart out at carnival events and there's nobody around him. There's nobody in a tight little dress with a purse on her hand looking like "Dies my man." So, Minister Young, MP Stuart Young, who for the longest while are saying, "You owe me a man bun," right? I was hoping during the pandemic you would have grown out the hair long enough so you could have tie it up in a little man bun and thing. You are out carnival wearing them nice t-shirts and them jeans and things, so watch out, Stuarty, watch out, because I out and bad this carnival too. No behavior. It's 2 whole years I waiting to come out on the road and play myself. So Stuarty, you only end up in a little panorama, in a little panyard, in a little juvet, in a little mass, in a little fets, and I see you, and I will be taking a little wine. So that's my good news, right? When I see this picture this morning, I was like, was that he's young? Me understand all yeah. Me understand all about Dookie young. Yes, Debbie, you could do a cougar. Do a cougar back, Debbie. Tell me how it was. I want to know. Yulin, Yulin, I'm not joking, girl. Yulin, the man out and bad all over the tongue for carnival this year. If you see picture I seen, right? Real picture of Stuart all over the place, all in the savannah. I say, Stuart, know that the savannah is not safe because I will be there. I will be there. So yes, Stuarty, you go out. You like up the pan. You love up the culture, Stuarty. Love up the culture because I am coming to love you up too. Right, so that's my bit of good news, that I see a good looking man jumping up in the savannah last night and I had myself, I full up my eye with some nice eye food. Was I behave myself? Why I must behave myself? All you see a nice man and all you going and behave all yourself? Look, try the best with me, Try the best with me. Anyhow, as I said, I going out. Where's that Madam Moringa? You missed the first 10 minutes. What you doing? You're watching Stuart Young pictures too now. Anyhow, as I was telling earlier, I have a little event that I'm going to afterwards. So this evening is not going to be a long live. But we have to touch on we boy, right? We had a touch on we boy Inchan, who phase 2 Baamboo, right? Phase 2 Baamboo. So Inchan Ishmael, I nearly got to say Inchan Muhammad, yes, Lord have mercy. Inchan Ishmael has been doing the most. I just see Karim Marcel on the live. Karim boy, how you doing? How you making out Karim? After Inchan make you so famous by saying, oh, Beatam have a lawyer. Oh, sorry, Beatam Sealots, right? Sealots. No, it's Beatam. Beatam have a lawyer, so what? And I was like, so in this 21st century, we still had to rely so heavily on tribal politics and, that kind of tribalism. It can't be a situation where we evolve to the point where we big up we group, right? Wherever we group is, wherever you decide your group is, because my group could be Team Stuart Young. I could be Stuart Young. If Stuart Young have a group, I could join that group. I could lock on into that group. Anyhow, we can't get to the point where we just decide we bigging up we group without necessarily stepping on other groups. Because I am a person of mixed descent. All you know that. I don't hide the fact that one parent is Afro-Tobagonian and the other parent is Indo-Trinidadian, right? And I feel it is very possible to say Tobago has good things about it, Trinidad has good things about it. Tobago has bad things about it, Trinidad has bad things about it, without necessarily having to say, well, Tobago this, but Trinidad that, or Trinidad this, and Tobago that. I don't see that I had to drag down one island to be able to talk up the next island. And it's the same thing with my ethnic background. I don't feel I had a bad talk, East Indian culture, to be able to big up African culture. The same way I don't feel I have to bad talk African culture to big up East Indian culture. To me, everything have things you could like about them, everything have things you could dislike about them, and that's how you run with it, that's how you go with it. So when it comes to culture in this country, I don't feel I had to go through the whole fight down about this culture versus that culture versus the other culture. And I also feel that all of these pseudo politicians, because that's what they are, pseudo politicians, all of these people who feel they're influencing votes, they're influencing voters, and so therefore they're influencing their access to the treasury or their access to the parliament. I don't see why they have to be stuck in the same mode of politicking. Because in one breath, there's one to talk about how we diverse, we multicultural, we cosmopolitan. And then in the next breath, they are repeatedly and consistently saying things to drag down whoever they see as the other or the other side. So Kareem earned a law degree. We can't just say, good job, or hush we mouth. Because you have that option too, right? You could hush your mouth. Or you could decide that you're only going to talk about the lawyers that you want to talk about, or the people who became lawyers that you want to talk about. It's real easy, you know. It's real easy. I could decide on Newsauce I am only going to be talking about the positive things that people of African descent are doing. And I could do that without painting people from any other ethnic group negatively. It is very possible to do those things. But every single moment you turn around, to be able to advance or promote any particular angle or agenda, it must first start with attack people of African descent, attack the culture of people of African descent, and drag them down. That's it. That's the whole playbook at every turn. That's the whole playbook. That's the only card in their deck of cards. You know, other decks just have 52 cards, and it's 52 different cards on different suites, whether it's hearts, clubs, diamonds, or spades. Well, these folks only have one card, the race card, every single time. Malik Georgiana, I hear that it's not so simple for some people, right? But I feel we could make an effort. And you know why we should make an effort? Because we live in a space where there are lots of things that we will not always like, but we are to share this space. For instance, me are particularly keen on many things to do with Christian religions and Christianity, because I find Christianity real full of hypocrisy, right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be coming out on a regular basis and attacking Christians and attacking Christianity. Hey, Rain Man, I see a reach, big up, whoop, whoop, right? I see people saying negative things about Hinduism, and I'm like, well, we need to be saying negative things about Hinduism for? you ain't practicing it, it not coming in your space, it ain't reaching home by you, it not troubling you, it not affecting you, leave people who practice in their religion alone. Leave them in peace. The same way we just want to bad talk the Baptist religion, as in the spiritual Baptist religion, the same way we just want to bad talk Orisha. If it ain't coming home by you, if it ain't reaching by you, if you ain't practicing it, if you're not involved in it, leave it alone. You have your own circus and your own monkeys to be focused on. Why you ought to be focused on other people's circus and other people's monkeys? So I don't understand those things. But I look on. And I look on because, of course, I'm always observing how we just do things in this place, how the culture in this country does function, right? So let me get into this topic at hand. So we're going to talk about, among many things, Inshan Ishmael's comments. And, well, let me jump the gun. And we're going to talk about Inshan Ishmael's comments because he's focused his comments on Carnival and on Pan. And the comments he is making stem from it's stuff that he has heard other people say in the past, and he's recycling it because it was useful then as a tool of division, and so he thinks it's going to be useful now. So everybody here know that the steel pan is our national instrument, and I want to hope that everybody here recognizes this guy. Please tell me everybody here recognizes this guy. I'm going to give only 2 seconds. Tell me, who is this person? Who is this gentleman that I have on the screen? Let me see how many of you know who this person is, who are going to be talking about just for a few minutes. Jilly Girl, if he'd locked on, that is his business. Maybe he learned something, maybe he learned something. I feel quite certain if he's locked on, he's not listening to learn. He'd be listening to see how he could respond to it and breaking barriers. And I find it ironic that his show is called Breaking Barriers, and what he's doing is building barriers. So that is Rudolph Charles, right? And Rudolph Charles is one of the persons who, thank you, Rudolph Charles. So Spree Simon, Winston Spree Simon, is the person who would have created the pan. Rudolph Charles is a person from Laventy who, no, it's not Spree. This is Rudolph Charles. This is, all you know David wrote a song, but the man with the hammer. Where the man with the hammer gone? Tell me where he gone. No, that is not Spree. This is Rudolph Charles. Some of you want licks, you know. So Rudolph Charles, born 1938, and he died in 1985. He was a musician and an instrument maker of the steel pan, but notably he was a pioneer and leader of the steel band movement. He was known as Charlo, he was known as the Hammer, he was known as Trail, right? And he was the captain of Desperados. And of course, all you know, Despas is a band that, you know, Real Wind Panorama, and Despas is my band. So why have I chosen to talk about Rudolph Charles? I have chosen to talk about Rudolph Charles for a number of reasons. He born and grew in Laventy. He was one of our pan pioneers. We have plenty pan pioneers, and in the aftermath of all of this foolishness about beating pan versus beating books, I say I will have to bring the president of Pan Trinbago on here, and we have a conversation about where pan has gone in the last century or so. Well, actually, it's more than a century. And so Rudolph Charles from Laventy would have been a pioneer, big deal. Rudder would have sang about him. Ooh, just now, right? I just tampered with the audio by accident. So I want to show you all something. I want to show you all the extent of the history that pan has. Because we like to talk about pan as if it's something that only invent yesterday or last week or, you know, a decade ago. Pan has much longer history than that. I'm just pulling up a link here. Right. So you all know, late last year, a pan manufacturing, a steel pan manufacturing company, MTTCO, would have been launched, right? They have their factory in Diamond Vale. So I went to MTTCO's website, and they have this really lovely history. They have a timeline of pan, and pan creation, pan's history as an instrument goes all the way back to 1890. Now, all you might be wondering, why Rhoda doing this? I'm doing this because I want you all to understand. When folks like Inshan Ishmael and Sat Maraj and Raymond Ramcharita come out and lash the national instrument is start last week. They're lashing at something that has a lot of history, that is deeply embedded in this country. What I see in there, that Rhoda is our what? Oh, I am the Ole Express Guardian Newsday. Oh Lord, Ole is, Right. So we go all the way back to the 1890s. So it means that the development of the steel ban, this history of the steel ban in this country is more than 100 years old. We might be, we head into close to 150 years old, right? So from 1890, that's when Baamboo would start. Not Baamboo Village number 2. Let me make that clear, right? Not Baamboo Village number 2, which back in the 1890s, Baamboo Village number 2 would have probably either been mostly wetlands, right? River systems, rice growing, and then some cane north and east of it. Baamboo, we ain't talking about Baamboo Village number 2. In 1890, we would have had Baamboo. Right? So before Baamboo Village number 2, there was Baamboo. So the steel pan older than Baamboo Village number 2. So when men want to come and wash them out on the steel pan and talk about who beaten pan, and by the way, we play pan, we don't beat pan, right? Beaten pan is a very pejorative term. You're not supposed to be using terms like that, because that does drag down the caliber of the instrument that we have. Nobody is big, it's a light thing, a light tapping. Right. So 1890, Baamboo. Then you come into 1930, Baamboo replaced by metal bands, right? So by then you start to have the use of these metal drums. 1940s, the emergence of the ping pong, again a type of steel pan. 1945, Veterans Day, the steel pan was presented to the world for the first time in Port of Spain because we was playing it on the streets for VE Day. Right? Again, 1945. This is before Baamboo Village number 2 set up and start a thief car and chop up car and thing, Right? Good. So that is 1950s. You see advances in the instrument. 1951, Trinidad All Steel Percussion Orchestra performs at the 1951 Festival of Britain. Pan, 1960, more innovation and expansion. 1962, we become independent. And after we become independent, that is when the first panorama competition is held, and it is thereafter that it is recognized as our national instrument. 1970s, we begin to conquer the world. Everybody want to hear the instrument, play the instrument, learn more about the instrument. In the 80s, more expansion. 1990s, we get honored with all kinds of prestigious awards. Then in the 21st century, we start to take ourselves here seriously with our instrument, and we introduce pan in schools, we start to teach pan as an instrument that you could get a degree for, a music degree, and UTT has a whole steel pan program. And then of course by 2020 the musical instruments of Trinidad and Tobago is established. The musical instruments company of Trinidad and Tobago is established, right? So whenever you get a chance, go and check out the website and read the little bits of information they have here. And of course you could go and check to see what Pan Trinbago has as well. So I felt it was necessary for you to see that Pan around before Baamboo Village number 2, long before Baamboo Village number 2 was established as a settlement, right? So let me get into a couple things. We have had a long history here, several decades, at least 2 decades, if not more than that. But I could tell you for certain 2 decades. And why can I tell you all certain for 2 decades? Because I entered media 2 decades ago, at the turn of the century, right? So around 98, 1999, that's when I started working in media. So all your girl old. I working in media since the end of the 20th century. We are now in the 21st century. So when I entered media, several of the media houses had at that point in time started offering these columns, these newspaper columns, that they claimed were giving an alternative perspective, alternative views, alternative positions on issues in the country. And so Express and Guardian, both Express and Guardian, both of these newspapers had at some point in time columns from either Sat Miraj or Raymond Ramcharita. And both Sat Miraj and Raymond Ramcharita have on numerous occasions. Everybody here knows who Sat Miraj is. And most of you here should know who Raymond Ramcharita is. Both of these gentlemen at different times, I'm going to put both their pictures back up. Both of them at different times would have done columns in newspapers bad talking carnival culture, bad talking the steel band, bad talking calypso. As a matter of fact, a number of their columns basically pointed to carnival, mass, calypso, and steel pan as forms that were making people stupid, right? They referred to these forms, wrote about these art forms, discussed and theorized on these art forms in newspaper columns. National newspapers spoke about culture and culture, national culture. I want to make that point, that it is national culture that they would be speaking about. Yes, cultural forms that would have been inspired by a particular ethnic group, but national culture nonetheless. Whether you like it, agree with it, disagree with it, it is still national culture. It's the same way I appreciate that the cultures from all of the other groups are national culture as well. So they would regularly speak about calypso, soca, pan, mass in derogatory ways, indicate and imply that these art forms are for the most part making people stupid, right? Mind you, for me, what my concern was that there was no evidence to support the things that they're saying. No evidence whatsoever. The same way we like to say that music does make people want to behave in violent ways, and video games does make people want to do violent things, even though people doing violent things long before certain types of music and video games, there was no evidence to support the claims that were being made in these columns. On a couple of occasions, I reached out to editors of these newspapers, then editors, not the current editors, the then editors, and I said to them, I asked, why are you publishing these kinds of columns? Because the theories that they are putting forward don't have evidence to support support them. It's one thing to say, in my opinion, calypso is this, and in my opinion, steel pan is that, and in my opinion, mass is whatever you think mass is, right? It is an entirely different thing to say the steel pan does this, calypso does that, mass does the other, and you have no evidence to back up and support your claims. So, for a good 2 decades, these two gentlemen wrote columns that implied that those art forms were less than savory, right? They wrote and said a lot of things that were quite, for me, eye-opening. Now, when you start to attack the culture of a group, it is a given that the group will feel attacked. The interesting thing is, in Trinidad and Tobago, Black people are not allowed the luxury of feeling attacked. If somebody come now and sing a calypso or soca tune about any aspect of Hinduism, for instance, the community will be up in arms. Oh, they're being attacked, they're offended, it is sacrilegious, it is profane. Because I know how everybody get on about Rashtroti Om Shanti back in the day. Yeah. You do that for any other culture in this country, people up in arms and vex and want to burn down the town. But somehow it's okay and it's all right to attack the cultural forms that have been created here by persons of West African descent. Why? Why? Why we think that's okay? Why we think that's healthy? Why we think that's the only way to operate? So, let me get into we boy from Baamboo Village. So this is Baamboo Village. There's our overhead shot. And this from the 1st of January. But the reason I'm using the photo is because I want to remind all you something. There was a flood, a big flood that hit Baamboo Village and other areas badly. And what intrigued me about this photograph, one, was that it was an overhead shot taken of Baamboo Village. Two, you saw that a house was built on the riverbank in Baamboo Village. And you know what building and construction on the riverbank this cause and lead to. So I looked at the picture and I thought, okay, all right, interesting. It's good to know that residents of Baamboo Village are aware that there are people that have built illegal structures on the riverbank. So when the flood took place last year, Inshan Ishmael was one of the persons, because he's an activist for his community. Nothing wrong with being an activist for your community. What is wrong is when you decide that your activism is going to actually be vigilante behavior. And that's when I would be concerned about activism, whenever you start to get on like a vigilante. So Inshan, who is an activist for his community, came out and spoke out and said a number of things. He cussed Faris, he cussed Rohan, he spoke very, very, very strongly about the government's response to the flooding in Baamboo. That would have been in November. Now, when the Bacchanal take place, AZP News did some footage, and we played the footage right here. And in the footage, you had persons standing up in the video and pointing out that it is persons from Baamboo Village self, from Baamboo Village number 2 self, that excavating the riverbank, taking away the dirt from the riverbank, cutting away the riverbank, and so that is what would have led to flooding in the area. So the narrative changed. And when the narrative changed, there was a lot of backlash for the community as a result of the changing of the narrative. That would have been in November. And the backlash and the talk carried over into December. Lo and behold, end of December, National Carnival Commission comes makes its announcement saying that it is going to be spending close to $150 million on Carnival this year, the first Carnival since 2020. And Inshan Ishmael sees it as an opportunity to change the narrative. And so the narrative shifts away from talking about flooding Baamboo Village, the way in which Baamboo Village was developed, all of the things that was surrounding that conversation, because people were talking about it being an illegal development. People were talking about what occurred in Baamboo Village years ago, as it being a site where stolen cars would end up being, cut up and resold in parts. All of those things. There was all of those discussions being taking place about Baamboo Village. Inshan, clever man that he is, and I'm being sarcastic there, saw the opportunity to change the narrative. And of course, he saw the opportunity to change the narrative using a topic that he knows is one that will be emotional, one that he knows that will rile up people. So he comes with a topic that is based on race. So $149 million to be spent on Carnival via the NCC, and he immediately starts with a race angle to it. So this is one of the first comments. $147 stinking million for something 95% of the country does not give a damn about. 9 months later, abortions and babies, and so that's the angle homeboy decided he going with, right? And this would be, let me go back and show the date, right? Because the dates on these things are important. So the same day they announced and NCC announced their budget, the 29th of December. So month 10. Nobody talking about Christmas and thing no more. Everybody looking towards the new year. We was quarreling about fireworks and thing. And NCC comes, makes its announcement with respect to Carnival, and this post gets put up because it's a nice race baiting post. And the thing is, you could say Carnival without saying the N word, and that's what works here. Because once you have decided that you are going to position yourself as an ethno-national politician, and that's why the show today is about ethno-nationalists. People who are ethno-nationalists focus on promoting ideas of race and racial exclusivity and racial purity, and race having to be a protected thing. And so you get people to circle the wagons, and you send out your dog whistles. So the minute he starts talking about Carnival, and he starts talking about carnival culture and abortions, and I was like, okay, all right. So I look at it and I said, all right, it kind of loud. I mean, he can't not know what is going on. So that was the first one. Then came, what else can you get for $147 million? Emergency surgery for over 500 children. Now, this is where Inshan starts to go through using a range of logical fallacies, right? So he using the dog whistle, and then he going to come with strawman arguments and oversimplification and a range of things to get people talking about the money being spent on Carnival and Carnival culture. And we know that Carnival and Carnival culture is code for something else. So that was the next thing, how much money being spent on Carnival and Carnival culture. Then it was schools falling apart. So now it becomes, well, we could be spending money on the children, we could be spending money on education, and we're not spending money on education. And this is where he starts to use Satmaraj's narrative from back in the day. But all is studying to beat pan when the children should be beating books. So the dog whistle getting stronger and stronger now. Bear in mind, this gentleman has often positioned himself as a politician who representing the interests of people. And you are representing the interests of people within a space where multiculturalism is a range of us here. So how do you get to decide and determine what culture money should and shouldn't be spent on? So that was that. Then, no, we just did that. Then, again, the 29th of December. I mean, it was plenty posts on the 29th of December. So, all again, what 147 million could be spent on. Now, I want all you to bear in mind the figure 147 billion, because we're going to look at some money figures in a little bit, right? So you put education before carnival. That is racism. That is dog whistling. So this post was thrown at me. This was the 30th of December. Because when I saw the post, I put it up and I was like, okay, the dog whistle kind of loud here, boy. Because not everybody's stupid in Chan. Not everybody does think that you could that the only time you're being racist is when you're using the N-word. We know that there are lots of different ways to refer to black people in a pejorative way without using the N-word. And we just hear the dog whistle. Then the 4th of January, teachers walk out of a school because the school needs repairs. And again, he starts up $147 million for carnival, right? Then where's the return a return on investment on the 147 million being spent for carnival? Then he starts carrying about it's only the big Sawatis who get any money. Then what's the next thing, boy? On 6 days ago, the government put out a release. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and the Arts put out a release indicating that they would be giving remittances to unsponsored steel bands. So if there are steel bands that don't have sponsors, they can apply to the state and the state will sponsor them. And then 5 days ago, if we spent more money on education and not carnival, we would not have this. I didn't play the video to see where is it this he talking about. Right, so let me make some sense of this nonsense, wrap this thing up and get ready to go out because I want to go and beat things other than books, right? Let's look at the budget allocations on budget 2022. Well, budget 2023, right? So that's the, this current fiscal year. The most amount of money this year is being spent on education. Over $7 billion, almost $7.5 billion. Then we have $6.8 billion on health, $5.7 billion on national security. I want you all to go down the entire list and tell me where there are you seeing culture. Education, health, national security, social grants, works and transport, public utilities, local government, agriculture, housing. Culture isn't there because culture didn't get a big ticket spending. Culture got less than $1 billion allocated to it this year. So we're looking at $7.5 billion for education. And in Inchan Ishmael's mind, what the government needs to do is take that $147 million allocated to Carnival and put it in education and training, and that will fix the problems that we have in schools. In Inchan's mind, for health, take the $147 million that we're spending on the festival or carnival this year and put it in healthcare. Inchan ain't going to come out and say that we should be paying more than $8 a week in health surcharge. Inchan ain't going to come out and say that more employers should be paying their employees health surcharge. Because I would want to know all of them businesses in Baamboo Village, because he talk a big talk, put up a big post about villages about Baamboo Village number 2, and it have businesses there and the businesses paying tax. So I want to know, all of them businesses in Baamboo Village, are they registered businesses? And if all of those businesses in Baamboo Village are registered businesses, are they paying their fair share in terms of NIS, health surcharge, and PAYE? Is it going to be a situation where if we went to the Board of Inland Revenue, we're going to hear anything weird about any of these businesses? Are we going to hear that all of these businesses pull in their weight with respect to taxes? Because when you have everybody paying their fair share in tax here, whether it is income tax, NIS, health surcharge, or later on this year, property tax, there's more money to put into all of these services and amenities that Inshon and them saying, well, take the money from Carnival and put the money into these things. Why Inshon not talking about the fact that health surcharge only raises about $300 million annually? And look at what the health bill is. Our health expenditure is $6.8 billion. Almost $7 billion is our health bill. Our medicine bill alone to import medicines into the country is $1 billion per year. And then, of course, you have to pay salaries, you have to maintain hospitals, you have to buy equipment. There's a range of things that go on in healthcare, in the health sector. Health surcharge is providing less than $1 billion in revenue. Inshon wouldn't come out and say, well, you know what? Perhaps what we need is a situation where more money is being generated via health surcharge to support the healthcare system here. Because everybody does jump up and quick to talk about what the healthcare system is like in the United States, what the healthcare system is like in the United Kingdom, what the healthcare system is like across Europe. All you know what kind of taxes they're paying in those countries? And do you all know that everybody does have to be paying the tax, or they can't slip through the tax net the way people is slip through the tax net in this country? Because we have an adult population of 1.1 million people, right? 1.1 million people in this country are over 18. Our working population, or employed population, or rather I should say the public sector, is about 400,000 employees. And that's the only sector that I could say for absolute certain paying its taxes. 400,000 people. Because I don't know, I can't say for certain how many people are actively employed in the private sector. Why? Because not everybody does declare that they're employed in the private sector. Not all employers just do what they're supposed to do. Not all employees just do what they're supposed to do either. So, when I see persons like Inshon carrying on about what $147 million from Carnival could do for healthcare, I want to say this. $147 million from Carnival, Inshon? No. What we really and truly need is revamped health surcharge. We need more people who here using the healthcare system to be paying their health surcharge. And we probably even need to raise health surcharge from $8 a month to what? Is it $8 a month? It is a figure like $8 a week, I think. Sorry, that's it, $8 a week. We need people to be paying more than $8 a week as their health surcharge. Maybe $10 a week. Maybe $15 a week as your health surcharge. But the point is, what we are paying in terms of health surcharge does not even begin to scratch the surface in terms of what our health sector needs to provide the services that it's providing. And if we're going to be complaining about how shoddy the health service sector is, we need to accept that we are getting what we're paying for. As a matter of fact, we're getting more than what we're paying for. Because if we paying $8 a week, or I see Madam Moringa says it's $8.25 a week. If we paying $8 a week, and the government has forked out $6.8 billion for the year, then it means that the government is subsidizing the healthcare sector, because everything from the healthcare sector ain't coming out of the health surcharge, right? So that's the budget. But here's the other thing that struck me as odd about what Inshan was carrying on about. There's always be quarreling and carrying on about economic diversity. We need to diversify the economy. Every year when the budget comes around and all of the fiscal pundits and the fiscal gurus and them decide to weigh in on things, they're quick to lash Imbert and talk about the economy needs diversifying. You know, it's one of the ways to diversify the economy through tourism. We're always hearing about the tourism sector. The tourism sector is always complaining about how it is being neglected, it's not being paid attention to. Carnival is one of the ways in which we make tourist money. It might be diasporic Trinidadians that are coming home, Trinbagonians, that are coming home to participate, but that's how we make in tourist dollars. So I want to ask this. Inshan, you ready to pick a struggle yet? Because it's either you want to see the country diversify economically or you don't want to see the country diversify economically. And then in the next breath, use the same man just be sitting down on your pages, on your posts and on your programs talking about how worthless the black community is. Carnival is a way of the black community making money. It is a source of income for many people from the African descended community. It is also a source of income for many persons who ain't West African descended at all. Because there are lots of companies, trucks, tents, porta potties, sound systems, who ain't had nothing to do with the West African descended community, but they are earning an income off a carnival. So pick your poison, Inshan. Pick a struggle. It's either you want to see the country thrive, either you want to see economic diversification, either you want to see people from communities earning money so that way they could spend money in your community. But you can't be in one breath bad talking people, cussing a culture, cussing a festival, and then in the next breath saying the things that you be saying. You're not making sense. And I need you, Inshan, to make it make sense. How $147 million from a ministry that getting less than $1 billion when the year come, how that bothering you so much? Why you ain't complaining about how much money going into the healthcare sector and doctors ain't showing up in the hospitals to do it as they're supposed to do on time? How you ain't complaining about how much money being spent on the healthcare sector and equipment and medication going missing and ending up in private clinic? Why you ain't complaining about that? As a matter of fact, what is going on with a hospital you were supposed to be building on the land that the government give you? You build a hospital yet? Because to the best of my knowledge, the state give you land to build a hospital for the Muslim community. And maybe if you build a hospital for the Muslim community on the lands that the state give you to build the hospital on, maybe those persons wouldn't have to be complaining about the public healthcare system, and they'd be able to talk about how great the healthcare system is in the hospital that you have provided for them, Inshan. Where the hospital? Is it that you need the government to take $147 million from Carnival and put that in your hand too? It's not enough that you get state lands to build the hospital and you build the hospital yet. You want the government to fund the hospital for you too. Because I sit down, set like a mappy, waiting to see what else you need the state to subsidize for you, you know. I'm waiting. So folks, there are a range of things that I could be talking about with respect to PAN and how PAN improves you as a person. How music, learning a musical instrument, the impact that a musical instrument has on your creativity, your ability to be more organized, your ability to focus, your ability to manage your mental health. There are a range of things that learning an instrument like the steel pan can do for you. And we're going to talk about that in our next program. But for this one, I really and truly wanted to have a sense of where exactly it is Inchon and them mean. When all you come in and all you cussing pan and all you cussing culture here, what we supposed to get from that? What we supposed to understand from that? That it's alright to move along the culture of one group in order to big up the culture of another group. Because that's the message I receiving. That's the message I receiving. That the only way you could big up yourself is to put your foot on somebody else's neck. And I would like to think in this 21st century that it's very possible to talk about and big up your own self without having to rest your foot on another culture's neck. Anyhow, all you enjoy the rest of the evening. All you go see me next week, right? And we go talk more things next week.
Push back on it, Baamboo, baby. Push back, baby. Push back on it, Baamboo.